So the topic of Kenneth's claim of fact speech was alcohol. And his main claim was that alcohol is simply not a beverage but a legalized drug in the United States. His secondary claims were what defines a drug, the short-term effects, and the long-term effects of alcohol. There really isn't a debate on the effects of alcohol and some of the similarities that it has to illegal drugs. So the speech isn't really a claim of fact argument, it's more of an informative speech of the negative effects of alcohol. So, going back to his first claim, what defines a drug? This secondary claim is stated as a question and not a claim that supports the main claim of the argument. It's just an explanation of what a drug is and really isn't an argument. He defines a drug as being something and often an illegal substance that causes addiction, habituation, or marks change in consciousness. He defines a drug but doesn't really make a connection on how this definition can also relate to alcohol and its effects. His secondary claim, shorter-term effects, again, it's really just a statement of the next subject point, and it really isn't a claim that advances his main argument. He states the effects of the short-term effects of alcohol as being memory lapse, blackouts, irrational behavior, and hangovers. But there was no evidence or examples on how some drugs have these same effects. So really the secondary claim doesn't advance his main claim at all, because there's no evidence comparing the two, alcohol and drugs. His third claim, the long-term effects, this is also just a statement of the next subject point. It really doesn't advance his main proposition because, there's no connection made between the long-term effects of alcohol and drugs. The effects that were mentioned were brain damage and the effects on parenthood and pregnancy. But also there are many other effects of alcohol that weren't mentioned that could have helped support this claim, such as death, alcohol poisoning, things like that. He mainly talks about the negative effects of alcohol, but there are also positive effects of alcohol. Most of these effects that he stated in his argument were only occur when someone has had more alcohol than their body can handle. So according to medicalnewstoday.com, small amounts of alcohol can have positive effects on your body. Women who have had 1 drink a day and men who have had 2 drinks a day were found to have fewer heart attacks and were at lower risk of diabetes, as seen in men and women that had fewer drinks or no drinks at all. While drinking in small amounts can be good for your body, some drugs taken in small amounts can be lethal, which is the difference between alcohol and drugs, or illegal drugs. For example, Jamina Boyd took 1 hit of heroin for the first time with her boyfriend on July 9th, 2007, and an hour later she was found dead from a heroin overdose. And there have been many other cases like this where people have died from just 1 hit. So overall, Kenneth's claim of fact speech is just an informative speech on the negative effects of alcohol and fails to mention the positive effects of alcohol and how it differs from the effects of drugs.
All right, structurally you just follow everything pretty clearly, and I thought you did an okay job on signposting. I like the idea of the challenge to it being an argument, in essence saying that it's essentially an informative speech. I think that point needs to be developed a little bit more using some of the criteria. You know, the advocate had a criteria about what constitutes a drug. Well, you've got some criteria for what constitutes an argument. How does his claim fail to meet that particular criteria? I think you could do exactly the same thing that he's done here, only apply it to the argument that he's talking about instead of this particular issue. You know, later on, you're making a press on this particular point that simply says, well, he didn't provide evidence that drugs have these same kinds of behaviors. You know what? I'm not sure that gets you very far. I doubt that there's anybody in here that doesn't believe this, and in fact later on you suggest that there are those kinds of effects that occur even if a person uses them a single time. I think that kind of information can be taken on what's called judicial notice. In other words, that most people would stipulate that drugs have these particular kinds of effects even though there's not any evidence demonstrating it. So I don't really think that that helps you very much. I did think that you had an interesting argument in the premise that there is a substantial difference because you're unlikely to have some of the severe consequences from consuming alcohol a single time that you might have from consuming drugs a single time. That's an interesting differentiation that you're presenting, and I thought that you developed a point on that. You've got the right argument, it just needs to be developed a little bit more, that there's not really an argument here. And you kind of explained it, gave some criteria. The press just was not all that, the follow-through on it I think needed to be stronger. Thank you.